The South Atlantic is cold, gray, and unforgiving. On the morning of May 25, 1982, the sea stretches endlessly beneath a low ceiling of cloud, broken only by jagged islands and the distant silhouettes of warships. It is Argentina's National Day, but for the men preparing to fly this mission, celebration is the last thing on their minds. At San Julian Air Base, A-4 Skyhawks sit on the runway, squat and aging, their paint faded by decades of service. They are relics of another era, designed in the 1950s, never meant to fight a modern naval task force protected by radar-guided missiles. Yet today, these aircraft carry the weight of a nation's gamble. Leading the strike is Capitan Pablo Carballo, a veteran naval aviator. He knows the numbers, he knows the odds, and he knows that missions like this rarely end with pilots returning home. Each Skyhawk is loaded with heavy iron bombs, simple, unguided weapons that require precision, luck, and terrifying proximity to the target. There are no smart bombs here, no electronic countermeasures, no onboard radar, no missile warning systems, just speed, altitude measured in meters, and nerves of steel. Their target lies over the horizon, 2 British warships, HMS Coventry and HMS Broadsword, operating close to the Falkland Islands. The British call this pairing a Type 42 destroyer and a Type 22 frigate. The Argentinians know them by a simpler name, ship killers. For days, the Royal Navy has pushed closer to land. British ground forces are advancing, and naval commanders know the risks. Operating near the island's limits radar coverage, creates blind zones, and offers attackers terrain masking, natural cover that low-flying aircraft can exploit. But the need to protect troops outweighs the danger. HMS Coventry, under the command of Captain David Hartdyke, takes up position alongside HMS Broadsword. For years, Japanese pilots were taught a single truth. The sky belongs to those with skill. They believed it because they had lived it. From the first months of the Pacific War, the Mitsubishi A6M0 delivered victory after victory. Against obsolete aircraft, poorly trained pilots, and uncoordinated defenses, it seemed unstoppable. The Zero was light. It was elegant. It was unforgiving to the enemy. Young men climbed into cockpits believing they were inheriting a legacy of invincibility. Veterans told stories of enemies that never saw them coming, of skies cleared in minutes, of fights decided before they began. What they were not told was that the war had already moved on. In operations rooms across Japan's remaining island bases, maps were changing. Red lines moved closer. Blue zones disappeared. Fuel allotments were cut again. By 1944, Japanese commanders were fighting a war of attrition with no replacements. Training hours were slashed. Pilots who once flew 600 hours before combat now entered battle with barely 100. Some had never fired their guns in the air. Some had never flown in formation under stress. Still, doctrine remained unchanged. Massed attack, aggression, sacrifice. When reports came in of American fleets advancing, the response was automatic. Launch everything. More than 200 Zero fighters were assigned to a single day's operation. Many pilots were told this would be decisive, that the enemy could be stopped. Inside command rooms, officers bowed, saluted, and watched the clock. They did not yet know they were sending those men into a system designed to destroy them. Coventry carries the long-range Sea Dart missile system, capable of destroying aircraft miles away, if it can see them. Broadsword, meanwhile, is armed with the cutting-edge Sea Wolf missile, designed specifically for low-altitude, close-range threats. On paper, it's a deadly combination. In reality, it depends on timing, coordination, and flawless execution. Captain Hartdyke knows the Argentinians are flying daily attack missions. Intelligence reports warn of aircraft launches from the mainland. He keeps his ship at high readiness, drills frequent, radar operators tense and alert. But no warning can prepare a crew for what comes next. The Skyhawks cross the sea at wavetop height. Their engines roar as they skim just meters above the water, salt spray hammering their canopies, the horizon distorted by speed and vibration. Every second spent this low is dangerous. One mistake, one unexpected swell, and the aircraft will simply vanish into the ocean. Carballo leads the formation toward Pebble Island. The island rises like a wall of rock and peat, exactly where British radar coverage is weakest. The pilots hug the contours of the land, using it as a shield. Inside HMS Coventry's operations room, radar operators suddenly stiffen. For returns appear. Bearing 225. Range 30 miles. Low altitude. The room snaps into action. Alarms sound. Orders are shouted. Missile systems begin to align. Captain Hartdyke feels the familiar tightening in his chest. This is it. As quickly as the contacts appeared, they fade. The radar screens clear. Contacts lost. Hartdyke knows exactly what that means. The aircraft haven't turned away. They've gone below radar coverage. Pebble Island is masking them. Sea Dart missiles are powerful, but they have a minimum engagement range. If the Argentinians stay low and come in close, Coventry may get only one chance to fire. Hartdyke immediately calls broadsword. Status. Broadsword's Sea Wolf system should handle anything that slips through, but even the most advanced technology depends on flawless tracking. Meanwhile, in the Skyhawks, Carballo brings his men even lower. At 10 nautical miles, they see them. Gray shapes on the horizon. Tall masts. Radar arrays. British warships. There is no turning back now. Carballo and his wingman Lieutenant Carlos Rinca push their throttles forward. The Skyhawks leap ahead, engines screaming, skimming the waves at maximum speed. On Coventry's radar, 2 hostile contacts suddenly bloom into view. 2 targets. Very low level. To complicate matters, a British Sea Harrier calls in. It's nearby, dangerously close to the engagement zone. Hartdyke has seconds to decide. Fire now and risk hitting a friendly aircraft. Wait, and lose the chance entirely? Turn the Harrier away. Engage. Missile operators struggle to achieve lock. The Skyhawks are too low, too fast, too close. Carballo's canopy is smeared with salt. The aircraft shudders as it cuts through spray. Tracer fire begins stitching the water around him. The ships are right there. A Zero fighter shudders as its engine comes alive. The pilot feels the vibration through the thin metal frame. Through the seat, the rudder pedals, the control stick worn smooth by previous hands. There is no armor behind his head. No protection beneath his feet. He checks his gauges. Fuel is limited. Ammunition even more so. Around him, dozens of aircraft begin to move. Taxiing. Lining up. Lifting off one by one. The sky fills with engine noise and exhaust. Below, the runway shrinks. The base disappears. Ahead, open ocean. The pilot knows the Zero's strengths. He has been taught to turn, to outmaneuver, to fight close. He believes that if he sees the enemy first, he will survive. He does not know that he has already been seen. Far away, inside a steel carrier operations room, the mood is calm. Radar screens glow softly. Operators speak in measured tones. Contacts appear, then more, then dozens. Altitude, bearing, speed. No confusion, no panic. American fighter directors issue instructions like chess moves. Squadrons are vectored into position. Altitudes assigned. Intercepts calculated. Hellcats and Corsairs are already warming their engines. Pilots are briefed in minutes. Large incoming raid. Maintain altitude advantage. Do not turn with them. This is not bravery versus bravery. It is system versus system. The Japanese pilots see shapes ahead, small, dark silhouettes against the sky. For a moment, hope flickers. Then the Americans dive. Hellcats fall out of the sun at high speed, guns firing in short, controlled bursts. A Zero explodes without warning. Another trails flame. A third simply disintegrates. The Japanese formation shatters. Some pilots try to turn hard left, hard right, instinct taking over. But the enemy is already past them, climbing away, setting up for another pass. There is no dogfight. There is no rhythm. Only sudden violence. On HMS Broadsword, Sea Wolf finally acquires the targets. But the 2 Skyhawks are flying so close together that the system interprets them as one aircraft. Then suddenly the radar contact splits. The guidance computer freezes. The missile system crashes. Restart. There is no time. Lookouts shout warnings as the Skyhawks burst into view, visible now to the naked eye, racing straight at the ships. Coventry's guns open fire. So do the sailors. Rifles. Machine guns. Anything that can throw metal into the air. The sea erupts with splashes and tracer lines. Carballo sees the fire walking toward him. He knows they won't survive a second pass. He orders a last-second change. The Skyhawks break toward broadsword, slipping out of Coventry's gun arcs. They roar past at mast height. Bombs release. 2 1,000-pound bombs fall and strike the sea. They don't sink. They skip, like stones across water. One falls short. The other slams into broadsword's hull, punches through, and exits without detonating, tumbling uselessly into the sea. Carballo feels the sting of frustration. But the attack isn't over. Behind them comes the second pair. First Lieutenant Mariano Velasco and Lieutenant Jorge Barrionuevo. Their Skyhawks carry smaller 250-kilogram bombs, less destructive but more reliable. Coventry turns hard to starboard, attempting to bring Sea Dart to bear. A missile launches. It streaks upward, then loses lock. The Argentinians drop even lower. The missile flies on blindly, missing by hundreds of meters. On broadsword, Sea Wolf finally comes back online. Targets appear. Launchers align. Then Coventry sails directly across the firing line. The target is masked. It's too late. Every gun on Coventry fires. The main gun's aim is off. A 20mm cannon jams. Sailors fire rifles in desperation. Velasco lines up the ship. He fires his cannons, raking the deck, then releases his bombs. They strike the hull. Silence. A heartbeat. Then, 2 massive explosions. The ship shudders violently. Fire rips through compartments. The operations room is obliterated. Power dies. The ship begins to list. Captain Hartdyke is thrown to the deck. Smoke. Darkness. Screaming. Coventry is mortally wounded. Hartdyke staggers through wreckage, emerges onto the deck. Instead of panic, he finds discipline. Men helping men. Wounded being carried. Rafts prepared. The ship rolls further. One by one, the crew abandons her. Hartdyke stays until the end. Alone on the burning hull, he takes one last look. Then he steps into the raft. 170 men survive. 19 do not. All 4 Argentine pilots return safely. HMS Coventry capsizes and sinks. It is one of the most devastating single losses of the Falklands War. And yet, it does not change the outcome. The war will continue. Argentina will lose the islands. But on this day, 4 pilots flying outdated jets proved that courage, timing, and terrain could still kill a modern warship. A Japanese pilot pulls hard on the stick, trying to force a turn. The Zero responds instantly, but it doesn't matter. A burst of .50 caliber fire tears through the wing root. Fuel ignites. The cockpit fills with smoke. There is no armor to stop the fragments. No self-sealing tank to slow the fire. The pilot has seconds. Some try to bail out. Some are trapped by flames. Some never know what hit them. The sky fills with falling aircraft. The radio is chaos. Broken calls, half-sent warnings. Silence. As the attacks continue, leadership disappears. Flight leaders are killed. Section commanders vanish. Radios go quiet. Without coordination, the remaining Zeros fly straight ahead, hoping speed will save them. It doesn't. American fighters rotate in fresh squadrons. Those low on ammunition disengage. Others take their place. The Japanese pilots are fighting exhaustion, fear, and confusion. By midday, entire air groups no longer exist. Section 8. Command room realization, 4 to 5 minutes. Back on Japanese bases, officers wait. The expected reports do not arrive. Aircraft are overdue. Then hours overdue. Some signals come through, fragmented, incomplete. Numbers are rewritten on boards, then erased, then rewritten again. Reality sets in slowly, then all at once. This is not a setback. This is destruction. By afternoon, the battle is over. The Americans recover their aircraft. Damage is logged. Losses are counted and found to be minimal. The ocean below tells a different story. Wreckage drifts. Oil spreads. Smoke lingers. Nearly 200 Zero fighters are gone. With them, Japan's last experienced airmen. Long before the first Argentine jet ever lifted off that morning, the British ships were already at war with uncertainty. HMS Coventry was not supposed to be here. She was designed to operate farther out at sea, where her Sea Dart missile system could stretch its reach and dominate the airspace long before enemy aircraft ever came close. In open water, Coventry was lethal. Her radars could see far. Her missiles could strike hard. But war rarely respects design intent. British ground forces were pushing inland across the Falklands, and they needed air defense. The Argentinians were flying relentless attack missions, low, fast, and suicidal. To protect the troops, ships had to move closer to shore, into terrain that favored the attacker. Captain David Hartdyke understood this better than most. Coventry's role was to act as the outer guard, detecting incoming aircraft early and destroying them before they could threaten the landing forces. HMS Broadsword, positioned nearby, provided the close-range protection Coventry lacked. On paper, the pairing was elegant. In practice, it required perfect coordination between two ships, two missile systems, multiple radar operators, and a constantly shifting tactical picture. Any error, any delay could be fatal. Inside Coventry's operations room, the air hummed with electronics. Radar screens glowed green. Operators sat rigid in their chairs. Headsets crackled with reports from other ships and aircraft. They had already survived multiple attacks in recent days. Argentine pilots were brave, aggressive, and terrifyingly skilled at flying low. But Coventry had done her job so far. Sea Dart missiles had claimed aircraft. The crew trusted their ship. Still, no one relaxed. Captain Hartdyke paced quietly, hands clasped behind his back. He had commanded men before. He had faced danger before. But naval warfare in the missile age was something else entirely. Aircraft can be rebuilt. Pilots cannot. Japan no longer has the fuel to train properly. No longer has instructors with combat experience. No longer has time. The pilots lost that day were the foundation of Japan's air power. Their replacements will be boys. Their missions will be shorter. Their survival unlikely. This is when the shift begins. From defense to desperation, the Zero does not disappear. It changes purpose. Lighter, stripped, loaded with explosives. Pilots are told they will not return. The aircraft that once symbolized dominance becomes a one-way weapon. Not because Japan wants it, because Japan has no other choice. The war will continue. There will be more battles, more losses, more deaths. But after this day, the outcome is no longer in doubt. American aircraft will dominate the sky. Bombers will reach their targets. Fleets will move freely. 200 fighters took off believing they would change the course of the war. Most never came back. And with them vanished Japan's control of the Pacific Air War. Forever. The longest part of the mission is the approach. Hours over open ocean. Nothing but engine noise and sky. Inside the Zero's cockpit, time stretches. The pilot scans the horizon again and again. No clouds. No enemy. Just formation flying and the constant vibration of the engine. Some pilots think about home. Some repeat procedures in their heads. Some feel the quiet dread they cannot name. They were trained to fight enemies they could see. They were not trained to be hunted by machines. Far below, American submarines track surface movements. Far above, radar watches patiently. The Japanese pilots believe the silence means safety. It does not. There was no visible enemy. No incoming shells to dodge. Just blips on a screen, and the knowledge that when they appeared, decisions would have to be made in seconds. Back across the water, the Argentine Navy Air Arm faced a different reality. Their pilots knew the British ships were technologically superior. The Sea Dart missile had already proven deadly. Several Argentine aircraft had been destroyed without ever seeing the ship that killed them. The only viable tactic left was extreme low-level attack. By flying so close to the sea that radar waves bounced overhead, pilots could delay detection until the final moments. But this came at a terrible cost. There would be no second passes, no evasive maneuvers, no margin for error. Once committed, the attack was all or nothing. Capitan Pablo Carballo had briefed his men with brutal honesty. Expect heavy fire. Expect missile launches. Do not pull up early. If you hesitate, you die. They listened. They nodded. They strapped in. The Falklands are not gentle hills. They are sharp, broken, and unforgiving, perfect terrain for ambush. Pebble Island sat directly along the Argentine approach route, rising just enough to interfere with British radar coverage. Carballo knew this. British planners knew it too. But geography doesn't change because both sides understand it. The Skyhawks skimmed toward it, engines at military power, altitude measured in meters rather than feet. As they passed behind the island, Coventry's radar operators saw exactly what they feared. Contacts vanished. Not fading, not turning away, simply gone. Captain Hartdyke felt his stomach tighten. This was the worst-case scenario. Sea Dart missiles were powerful, but they were not magic. They required distance to arm properly. They required stable radar tracking. They could not engage targets that suddenly appeared too close. If the Skyhawks emerged from behind Pebble Island at low altitude and high speed, Coventry would have one chance to fire, if that. Hartdyke knew that Broadsword's Sea Wolf system was their last line of defense. Sea Wolf was designed for this exact threat. Fast, low, close. But Sea Wolf had never been tested in combat like this. No system ever truly is until the moment comes. When the radar contacts reappeared, it happened suddenly. 2 returns. Low altitude. Closing fast. Hostiles detected. The operations room snapped into action. Orders flew. Missile crews armed their systems. The ship vibrated as Coventry adjusted course. Then another complication. A British Sea Harrier reported its position too close. Dangerously close. Hartdyke had seconds to decide. Fire and risk killing a friendly pilot? Hold fire and risk losing the engagement window? He chose the missiles. Turn the Harrier away. Engage. Inside his Skyhawk, Carballo felt the aircraft shake as he pushed it even lower. The sea was no longer below him, it was around him. Spray lashed the canopy. The horizon blurred. His eyes burned with salt. He had no idea if missiles were tracking him. No warning tones. No alerts. Only instinct. Only speed. Tracer fire erupted ahead, stitching lines across the water. The British were firing everything they had now. Carballo didn't flinch. He couldn't. On HMS Broadsword, the Sea Wolf operators finally saw them. 2 Skyhawks, so close together they almost overlapped. The system locked. Then the contact split. The computer hesitated. Then froze. Guidance logic collapsed under conflicting inputs. The system crashed. Restart. The command came instantly. The crew worked frantically, fingers flying across controls, knowing that every second lost meant the enemy was closer. Above deck, lookouts shouted warnings. They could see the jets now. Coventry's guns opened up. The ship's main gun thundered. Smaller cannons chattered. Machine guns barked. Rifles cracked. It was a storm of fire born not of precision, but desperation. Carballo saw the splashes creeping closer. He felt something colder than fear. Acceptance. If he stayed on Coventry, he would die. He made the call. Carballo ordered the break. The 2 Skyhawks veered toward HMS Broadsword, slipping out of Coventry's gun arcs at the last possible second. They roared past Coventry's deck at mast height, close enough for sailors to see the pilot's helmet. Then the bombs came free, heavy, unguided, unforgiving. They fell toward the sea. Bombs are not meant to bounce. But physics does not care what they are meant to do. The first bomb struck the water and disappeared. The second hit at a shallow angle. It skipped. Once. Twice. Sailors aboard Broadsword watched in disbelief as a 1,000-pound weapon bounced toward them like a stone. It slammed into the ship's side, punched through steel, and emerged without exploding. Tumbled into the sea and vanished. For a moment there was silence. Carballo cursed. That should have been a kill. But there was no time to dwell. Behind them came the second flight. Velasco and Barrio Nuevo. Their Skyhawks carried smaller bombs, but ones more likely to detonate properly. Coventry's radar lit up again. For contacts now. Hartdike ordered a hard turn. Sea Dart finally achieved lock. The missile launched in a plume of fire. Sailors cheered, then watched in disbelief as it lost its target. Velasco had gone lower. Lower than anyone thought possible. The missile streaked past, blind and useless. Velasco saw it flash by. He never looked away from Coventry. Sea Wolf rebooted. Targets appeared. Launchers aligned. At that exact moment, Coventry crossed directly in front of the firing arc. Broadsword's crew froze. They could not fire. To do so would mean hitting a friendly ship. The opportunity vanished. On Coventry, Hartdike ordered all weapons to fire at will. Nothing was held back. The main gun sights were misaligned. A 20mm cannon jammed. Men beat on it in frustration. Rifles cracked from every corner of the deck. The sea boiled with splashes. Velasco lined up his run. An American Hellcat pilot circles at altitude. The cockpit is cramped, but solid. Armor plate behind the seat. Thick glass in front. Self-sealing tanks beneath. He listens to the radio. Calm voices. Short sentences. He knows the Zero's reputation. Everyone does. But this isn't 1942. He has been trained not to chase. Not to turn. Not to get drawn in. Make one pass. Then climb. Below him the sky is empty. Then the call comes. Bandits approaching. Multiple groups. He tightens his grip on the controls. This will not be personal. The first Zeros die without warning. No tracer fire seen. No enemy aircraft identified. One moment a pilot flies in formation. The next, the aircraft beside him vanishes in flame. There is confusion but no explanation. Some pilots assume flak. Others believe it is mechanical failure. Then another Zero explodes. And another. Only then do heads tilt upward. Only then do they see the attackers. This is not a horizontal fight. The Americans control altitude. They dive, strike, and climb, again and again. Gravity is their ally. Speed is their weapon. Zeros try to follow upward and stall. Others dive to escape and cannot regain height. The sky becomes layered. Above, American fighters. Below, Japanese aircraft with nowhere to go. Every engagement is brief. Lethal. Final. A Japanese pilot finally sights an American aircraft turning. Instinct takes over. He banks hard, pulling tighter than any other fighter could. For a moment, just a moment, he is inside the enemy's turn. He fires. The American aircraft keeps going. Then another Hellcat slams into view from above. Gunfire rips through the Zero. The pilot never sees it coming. The Zero was built to win duels. This is not a duel. He fired his cannons. Metal tore across Coventry's superstructure. Then he released his bombs. They struck. No explosion. A pause so brief it barely existed. Then, the ship exploded. The first blast ripped through the operations room. Computers vanished. Bulkheads collapsed. Men were thrown like dolls. The second detonation tore into the engine room. Fire surged. Power died. The ship began to list almost immediately. Captain Hartdike was knocked unconscious. When he came to, the world was darkness and noise. Smoke burned his lungs. Alarms wailed. Men screamed. He tried the intercom. Dead. The ship groaned beneath him. He forced himself upright. Hartdike moved through corridors filled with smoke and debris. Somewhere, metal warped and screamed. He found a way out. Cold air hit his face as he emerged onto the deck. What he saw stunned him. Not panic. Discipline. Men carried wounded. Others prepared rafts. Medical teams worked under fire and smoke. Training took over. The ship continued to list. Hartdike realized there was nothing more he could do. One by one, his crew left. He stayed. Alone on the burning hull, Hartdike looked across his ship. She had done her duty. So had he. He stepped into the final raft. Coventry rolled over. 19 British sailors died. 170 survived. All 4 Argentine pilots returned. Coventry sank beneath the cold Atlantic. It did not change the war, but it changed naval warfare forever. Technology failed. Courage mattered. And on one gray afternoon, outdated jets defeated a modern warship. American pilots do not spray. They fire in short bursts, 2 seconds, 3 at most. They have learned that the zero does not need much. A hit to the wing root, a burst into the engine, a single pass through the cockpit. They do not stay to watch. They climb away. Below them, the result is inevitable. By midday, the Japanese formations are gone. Not defeated. Gone. Small groups remain, 3 aircraft here, 2 there, flying without coordination, without leadership, without a plan. Some turn back. Some push forward out of stubbornness or confusion. Few survive either choice. The Americans now fly freely. The battle has shifted from interception to cleanup. Japanese radio operators listen. They call out squadron names. No response. They call again. Still nothing. The boards show numbers that no longer make sense. Officers stop speaking. The room fills with the sound of clocks and distant engines. They understand now, but understanding changes nothing. As daylight fades, the few surviving Zeros attempt to land. Some run out of fuel short of the runway. Some crash on approach. Some land damaged beyond repair. Pilots climb out of cockpits in silence. They do not speak of what they saw. They do not need to. The absence says everything. On American carriers, pilots debrief calmly. Kills are reported. Gun camera footage reviewed. Some pilots are exhausted. Some are quiet. None are surprised. This is what they trained for. The system worked. This was not just an air battle. It was the destruction of Japan's remaining aviation corps. After this day, Japanese air cover becomes inconsistent. Carrier aviation effectively ends. Homeland defense weakens permanently. From here on, Japan reacts. America advances. The pilots lost that day are never replaced. Their names fade into reports, then archives. The Zero remains in service but hollowed out. What vanished was not just aircraft. It was the last chance for Japan to contest the sky. No city fell that day. No surrender was signed. But the outcome was sealed. 200 aircraft rose into the sky. Most never returned. And from that moment forward, the Pacific sky belonged to someone else.